Welcome back to All Things Kitchen. My name is Jennifer. Thank you for joining me today. If this is your first time being here, thank you. I appreciate it. If this is not your first time, I appreciate you being here as well. Today we're going to be cooking some blueberry biscuits. This is another new recipe for me. I was watching America's Test Kitchen or Cook's Country, one of those channels. I will link the recipe down below, and they made these and they look delicious. It's a little bit sweeter than a traditional biscuit, but not as sweet as a muffin. So sweet and savory, I guess. We'll see together. It looked delicious, and so we're going to try these blueberry biscuits and see if we like them. Another experiment for All Things Kitchen. I'm going to bring it down. I've got most of my ingredients all ready to go here. This should be fairly quick putting this together, and hopefully you'll like it and want to try it at home. The first thing I'm going to do is, this recipe does call for buttermilk, and I do not have buttermilk. So I've gone ahead and measured out some whole milk. In my house, we use Lactaid. So you can use regular milk, I would imagine. I don't even know if something like oat milk or something, I don't know if you can turn that into buttermilk. I've never tried that. Some other milk alternative, I'm not sure. But I've got 1 2/3 cup milk here, and I'm just going to add a couple of capfuls, overflowing capfuls of lemon juice, and this will pretty much turn this into buttermilk. I guess I only have long-handled teaspoons in here. I need to unload the dishwasher. The kitchen is a disaster behind you, but we're just going to pretend that it's not. Right? So while that is sitting, when you make your own buttermilk, you want that to sit for a couple of minutes so that it can do what it needs to do. I've got my container of flour here, and I need 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Hopefully I have enough already in here. I do need to replenish my flour. So this is a 2-cup measuring cup, and we're going to see if we have enough, or if I have to go grab a bag out of my pantry, which I very well may have to. You can't see what I'm doing, I'm sorry. There we go. So I'm doing the scoop method. You do not want to compact your flour when measuring it. You kind of want to scoop it into the measuring cup and then level it off. So here is 2 cups in my bowl, and then I have a 1 cup right here. This is a large container, and ever since I've started using bread flour to make my bread, I haven't used as much all-purpose flour for cooking, so that's why I didn't fill it when it was getting low, because I'm not using it as often. So that's 3 cups of flour in there, and I will leave this container out so I can go ahead and refill it. There's not enough in there for any other recipe. And then I believe I need a 1/2 cup of sugar. My husband got me this new set of measuring cups for Christmas, and I love it. It has some odd measurements. Like this is a 2/3 cup measuring cup, which is very nice. He bought me extra the 2-cup measuring cup. Plus, I think there's yeah, right here. Nope, over here. A 3/4 measuring cup. And you don't get those measurements in standard sets. So I'm also very low on my sugar here. This is the last of the white granulated sugar that I will be using. I have organic cane sugar that I'm going to be switching to. So there we go. That is a 1/2 cup of sugar. And I might be able to put the rest of that in my, nope, my little containers full that I use for like my morning tea and stuff. So I'm going to bring it back down here a little bit. Now I'm just going to incorporate these ingredients to start with. This is just the flour and sugar. I'm also going to add in here 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Well, I need to go ahead and preheat my oven. No. So I just preheated my oven to 400 degrees, or I just turned it on to preheat, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And again, leveling that off, and then baking soda is a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I need 1 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So let's see here. There's the 1/4 teaspoon. I use Redmond real salt. So if you ever see the salt and wondering what I'm using, why it looks a little bit different, this is Redmond real salt. So 1 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to mix all of these ingredients together. And I am going to get out my butter. Now I want 10 tablespoons of cold cubed butter. And I did cube that up earlier and put it back in the refrigerator. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in here. And I took a stick of butter and cut it into cut it into thirds lengthwise, and then flipped it and cut it into thirds again, and then cubed that up. Made little slices of it. I'm just going to kind of coat this a little bit, and then I'm going to get my hands in here and break it apart. And this would be like you traditionally would for either biscuits or making a pie crust. You just want to get in here and crumble up the butter. So let me get the camera reset. That's good. And so we want to make sure that we keep the butter nice and cold. That's going to help make nice and flaky biscuits. So first thing I'm doing is breaking apart these cubes so that they can get coated in butter, and it will keep them from sticking back together. And we're just gonna then, after I get done with that, go in here and kind of just squish the butter, break it, mix it up with the flour. And I'm just, basically what I'm doing is I've got butter with flour and I'm squishing it out. You see that piece right there, how I kind of flattened it out? And that's what I'm doing. keeping the flour in there. And I'm doing it with the tips of my fingers. I want to try not to do it too much with the palms, like doing something like that, because your palms are a little bit warmer than your fingertips. And we don't want to melt the butter. We want it to still stay cold. So this is going to take a few minutes. And when I'm done, I'll bring you back. I have all the butter broken up. And now this, instead of looking like flour, kind of looks like coarse sand. And if you see anything like these lumps right here, it may look like lumps of flour, but it's not. I mean, butter, but it's not. It's just like if I squish it together, it kind of stays together. So I have all the ingredients in here. And the next thing, now this recipe does call for fresh blueberries, a cup and a half of fresh blueberries. Or if you're using frozen blueberries, then defrost the blueberries and pat them dry, which is what I have done. I had frozen blueberries and I took them out and defrosted them. I have them right here in a paper towel, and they are defrosted and patted dry. Well, that's kind of pretty. Almost like a piece of art. So we're just going to kind of mix this up a little bit just so the blueberries get coated. Now, when I saw this on TV the other day, biscuits don't usually have such a wet dough. But this looked very, very wet when they made it. I forgot to get my 8x8 dish out. 1 second. I want to have my dish all ready. I'm going to go ahead and spray this with oil. Actually, butter. I'm going to put butter in here. So I went ahead and put some butter in my dish, and I'm going to put this in the oven and let that melt the butter. And then I will take a pastry brush and spread that around the dish, because this is almost ready to get in the oven. So I have my quote-unquote buttermilk here, just giving that a final stir. I've got my dry batter here with the blueberries nicely coated with that flour, and I'm going to start by pouring most of this in. Save about 1/4 cup. Now you want to make sure that you mix as little as possible, because we don't want to make this tough. And I'm doing more like a fold than a true mix. Scrape down the sides here. We can see how wet this is. So you would not be able to use this recipe to, minus the blueberries, or even with the blueberries, flatten this out and cut it into biscuits. It's just too wet. But oh my goodness, it did look delicious on the TV. So we're trying it together. There we go. I like that. I don't want to stir too much. The blueberries are going to start to make the batter purple, which doesn't hurt anything, but it's not exactly what I want. I just took this out of the oven. Our butter is nice and melted, and I'm just taking a pastry brush to get the butter up all on the sides. And making sure that this is evenly coated, so less chance of stickage. Oh, it smells so good. And then I'm going to pour the batter in here. And I'm calling it a batter because it is more like a batter than a dough. But you can see this here. Now, whenever I try new recipes, I do try to stick to the recipe as written. I think I've mentioned that before. And then see how in the future, how I might want to change it up, whether it be with flavors. Maybe this was too wet and it's not quite what I wanted. I don't know. We'll see. It may be perfect. Now, they did not stick the pan in the oven like I did to melt the butter. They just, I don't remember actually whether they oiled it or used butter and just used like softened butter and kind of rubbed it on. I'm not sure. I figured this will help it give a little bit of a crisp. But what they did do, and I'm going to do, is I have just a bench scraper here, and I'm going to score this, which is what they did. So I'm going to spray this with oil so it doesn't stick, and just kind of put this in and out, and this way and this way. Now, obviously, these marks are not going to keep the batter cut, but it did look nice when they got it out, and it kind of showed you where to cut it. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven, and this is going to take 40 to 45 minutes to cook. I got oil on my hands. So I'm going to let that cook for about 40 to 45 minutes. In the process, in the meantime, we are going to make some honey butter to put on top of that. So I have a little bit of honey. I need about a tablespoon of honey, I think. Yep, a tablespoon of honey. The recipe called for any type of honey that you like. We like orange blossom honey here in this house, so that's what we're going to use. And a tablespoon is about all that we have in this jar. And then, so 1 tablespoon of honey to 2 tablespoons of butter and just a pinch of salt. So I'm going to grab some butter and a container for that. I'll be right back. I have 2 tablespoons of butter. This is salted butter. I always use salted butter, but I'm still going to use literally just a pinch of salt in there. And I'm going to, I can get the lid open. There we go. Fingernails just didn't want to cooperate. I may need to take this lid off. This is local honey to me. There's an address on here. I need to see where we got this. And it's trying to crystallize a little bit. We go through honey pretty quick here. I'm going to put this in the microwave for about, we'll start off about 20 seconds or so. Although we don't need that honey butter until after everything is cooked. And actually I take it out and I let it cool for 5 minutes before I put the honey butter on there. But I do just kind of want to get it a little bit started. So about half of the butter melted. My kitchen is such a mess. I don't even have any. Actually, I think I do. I have 1 spoon left. I need to unload my dishwasher. Yesterday, you know, best laid plans and all that stuff. I had an entire day mapped out of what I wanted to do. and what I was going to do. And we have a couple of screens in our pool cage that had tears in them, and one of them, a raccoon had climbed up on the roof and was trying to climb over the pool cage and fell and tore the screen. So first it was a big corner of it was just hanging down, and every time the wind would blow, it'd catch your eye, somebody out there kind of thing like that. And with the wind that we've had these past couple of months, the tear just got worse and worse. And then it was only hanging on by one side of the rectangular screen area. So now that it's the season where things are falling out of the trees and everything was falling into the pool, we definitely had to get a move on it. Plus, mosquitoes are starting to come back, and with having the door open and that screen wide open, as if we don't have a screened in pool lanai area, mosquitoes were coming into the house. So I had called and set up a consult for somebody to come and look at the screen, and they had called and texted me while I was sleeping yesterday morning. I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, so when I woke up about 8:30-ish, I saw that I'd missed call, missed text, and they were wanting to come over. So I texted them back. I'm like, I'm here, come on over. So they did. They came over, gave me a price for everything that we needed to be replaced, because it was more than just that one. We had areas with tears. And they took care of it for us right then. But that threw my plans off, and that got me outside. And so then I started working on my garden and worked up a sweat and got all sweaty and came inside. And, you know, as I said in the last video, I was just really tired from the time change. So I ended up taking a nap for a couple of hours, which is fine. I took one this morning too after I got up. I got up, came out here, sat on the couch, got a cup of chamomile tea, and then proceeded to fall back asleep. So I've had 2 good naps this weekend, and I'm very happy for that. I wish good naps for you too. I'm going to bring you back when this is done. We're about 9 minutes into it, so that means about 31 minutes left. I said 40 to 45 minutes as far as that goes. We'll take a look and see. And I'll go ahead and refill my sugar and flour while we're waiting. I'll see you in a bit. So the timer went off on the oven, and I'm pulling this out, and it looks absolutely beautiful. It looks fluffy and light and delicious. I'm going to bring you down here to take a look at this. And we're just going to let this sit for about 5 minutes and let it cool down a little bit before we go to put the honey butter on it. And I'm going to reheat this honey butter just for about 10 seconds or so before we put it on there. But we are going to let the blueberry biscuit come down to temperature for just about 5 minutes or so. And then we'll bring you back. Now that this has cooled off for about 5 minutes, I'm going to attempt to get it out. And as you can see, it's not wanting to come straight away. I do go and grab a straight edge here that I can just run around the edge to see if it will assist me in this coming out cleanly. So again, I get my hot pads and I try to flip it out, and it's still a little stubborn. So I'm just going to grab that straight edge again and give it a little bit of assistance, and there it went. But it did stick to the bottom. That's okay though. Maybe we probably should have let it sit for a little bit longer than what the instructions said, since it did stick to the bottom, and that bottom had plenty of butter in it. So maybe we just needed to let it cool down a little bit. I do need to flip this back over so that it is resting on its bottom and not on its top. So I went to go grab another smaller cooling rack so I can flip this over, as I'm doing here. And I'm just going to let this rest after I fidget with these cooling racks. I'm just going to let this cool down for a little while longer. But first we need to put the honey butter on there. And I taste those crumbs that fell on the counter. Spoiler alert, it's delicious. So we're going to spread this honey butter all over the top, just grabbing a pastry brush. So now that I've got my pastry brush, we're just going to give this a good stir and put this all over the top. I'm just going to put this all over into the nooks and crannies as well, and coating the top with the pastry brush with this honey butter. All in the nooks and crannies, in the crevices, those score lines made by the bench scraper. We're just going to use all of this. I would recommend, kind of spoiler alert here, making sure that you have the proper amount of honey. I think this was a little shy on the honey and definitely could have used more. It was delicious, but I did not taste any of the honey on it, and I think that would have added an extra note to it, even though it was delicious. So we're going to let this soak in for about another 10 minutes and come down to room temperature some more. Going to cut into this right on those score lines that were preset for me and get this on a plate to give it a try. The edges seem nice and crispy. And take a look at how fluffy that looks. So light, so fluffy. And that honey butter soaked into the top. I'm going to grab a fork and take a look. Oop, that almost fell off the plate. So again, we had another microphone malfunction here. I do apologize, but I am just going to talk over while I'm talking to you. And I'm just talking about how we put the honey butter on there, and that when I was tasting the pieces that were stuck in the bottom of the pan, my brain didn't know what to make of it, because you look at it, it kind of looks like a blueberry muffin, and kind of your brain kind of wants to go there, but it's not sweet like a blueberry muffin. So let's give this one a taste. Trying to figure it out still. Is it a dessert? Is it a biscuit? It's kind of a little bit of both. It's fluffy, it's light, it's not sweet. If you like desserts that are not real sweet, this would be great. You could have a scoop of ice cream on the side to kind of balance that. It doesn't taste like a muffin at all, and it's not quite like a biscuit, at least not like the biscuits that I make. But it is very light, very fluffy. The blueberry flavor comes through, those pops of blueberries, and it's delicious. It is. Friends, I appreciate you spending this time with me today as we tried this new recipe. I can't wait to see you next time. I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week. Take care.